Aesop stories.
Number 26. The Tale of Andy the Ass, Freddy the Fox, and Leo the Lion. In a large green forest, there were many animals, but 3 of them decided to become friends: Andy the Ass, Freddy the Fox, and Leo the Lion. Andy and Freddy thought it would be safer to travel together, so they made a deal to protect each other while they explored the forest. One sunny day, Andy and Freddy were walking through the forest, looking for food. They hadn't gone far when they stumbled upon Leo the lion. Leo was big and strong, and both Andy and Freddy knew he was dangerous. Freddy, who was clever and quick-thinking, came up with a plan. He whispered to Leo, "If you promise not to hurt me, I can help you catch Andy." Leo, who was hungry, agreed to Freddy's plan. Freddy then went to Andy and told him not to be afraid. "Follow me, and I'll lead us to safety," Freddy said. Trusting his friend, Andy followed Freddy, not knowing about the secret deal with Leo. Freddy led Andy to a part of the forest with a deep pit that was hidden by leaves and branches. He tricked Andy into walking over it, and Andy fell into the pit. Andy was stuck and couldn't get out. Freddy, pleased with his clever plan, went back to Leo to tell him that Andy was trapped. But as soon as Freddy approached, Leo pounced on him. Freddy realized too late that he had made a mistake by trusting Leo. Leo then went to the pit where Andy was trapped and caught him too. Freddy's plan to betray his friend had backfired, and now both he and Andy were in trouble. The story of Andy the Ass, Freddy the Fox, and Leo the Lion spread throughout the forest. It became a lesson to all the animals about trust and betrayal. The animals learned that betraying a friend for personal gain can lead to one's own downfall. The other animals in the forest talked about how Freddy's cleverness was not used in a good way, and how it led to a bad outcome for both him and Andy. They realized that true friendship is about helping and protecting each other, not tricking and betraying. From that day on, the animals in the forest were more careful about who they trusted. They remembered the tale of the 3 friends and how their partnership ended in betrayal and sadness. Andy and Freddy's story became a reminder to all the animals in the forest that it's important to be loyal and honest with friends. They learned that a true friend is someone who stands by you and protects you, not someone who betrays you for their own benefit. And so, the forest was filled with animals who valued trust and friendship, remembering the unfortunate tale of Andy, Freddy, and Leo. They understood the importance of being honest and loyal to each other, creating a peaceful and harmonious environment in the forest. Number 27. The story of Tina the tortoise and Eddie the eagle. In a peaceful forest near the sea, there lived a tortoise named Tina. Tina was known for her slow pace and sturdy shell. One sunny day, while basking on the warm sandy beach, Tina watched the seabirds fly. She felt sad and started to complain to them. "It's so unfair that I cannot fly like you. I wish someone would teach me." Nearby, an eagle named Eddie was soaring high in the sky. He heard Tina's lament and swooped down to talk to her. "What would you give me if I taught you to fly?" Eddie asked with a curious look in his eyes. Tina thought for a moment and then replied, "I would give you all the treasures from the Red Sea if you could make me fly." Tina was desperate to experience the thrill of flying. Eddie, intrigued by Tina's offer, agreed to help her. "All right, Tina, I will teach you to fly," he said. He gently picked Tina up in his strong talons and started to ascend towards the clouds. Tina felt excited and a bit scared as they went higher and higher. She had never been this high off the ground before. Suddenly, Eddie let go of Tina. She started to fall rapidly from the sky. As she fell, Tina realized she had made a terrible mistake. Why did I ever wish to fly? I'm a tortoise, not a bird, she exclaimed. She regretted her wish to fly as she wasn't meant to be in the sky. Tina crashed onto a high mountain, and her shell shattered into pieces. In her last moments, Tina understood a valuable lesson. I deserved this fate for wanting something that was not meant for me. I should have been happy with what I had. Eddie watched from the sky with a sad look. He hadn't expected Tina to take such a risk seriously. He realized that sometimes, helping someone might mean saying no to their unreasonable wishes. The story of Tina the tortoise and Eddie the eagle spread through the forest and beyond. It became a lesson to all the animals about being content with who they are and what they have. The animals learned that it's important to appreciate their own abilities and not to desire what others have. They realized that longing for something that goes against their nature could lead to trouble. Tina's story reminded the animals in the forest to be careful about what they wished for. It taught them that not all wishes should come true, as they might lead to one's downfall. From then on, the animals in the forest lived happily, embracing their unique qualities and abilities. They remembered Tina and her unfortunate adventure, understanding the wisdom in being content with their own lives. Number 28. The story of the greedy flies and the jar of honey. In a small cozy kitchen in a big house, there was a jar of honey. One sunny day, the jar accidentally tipped over, and honey spilled all over the table. It wasn't long before a group of flies buzzing around outside smelled the sweet honey. The flies were very excited. "Look at all that honey," they said to each other. They couldn't resist the delicious smell and flew into the kitchen through an open window. They landed on the spilled honey and started to eat. The flies were so happy. They loved the sweet taste of the honey. They ate and ate, not thinking about anything else. But soon, they realized they were in trouble. Their feet were stuck in the sticky honey. They tried to fly away, but their wings wouldn't flap. The more they struggled, the more they got stuck. They were trapped in the honey they had so eagerly wanted. As they were struggling, they started to feel tired and knew they couldn't escape. In their last moments, one of the flies said, "We were so greedy for a little pleasure that we didn't think about the danger. Now, we have lost our lives for it." The flies had learned a hard lesson. They realized that their greed for the sweet honey had brought them to a sad end. They wished they had been more careful and thought about the consequences of their actions. The story of the greedy flies and the jar of honey spread throughout the house and even outside. The other flies heard about it and learned an important lesson. They learned that chasing after a small pleasure without thinking can lead to big problems. The kitchen where the honey had spilled became a place where the flies were more cautious. They remembered the story of the flies who had gotten stuck and suffocated in the honey. They learned to think about the consequences before diving into something that seemed good at the moment. The story also taught the other animals and insects in the house and garden. They learned that it's important to control their desires and not to let greed lead them into dangerous situations. The kitchen was cleaned, and the jar of honey was put away securely. But the story of what happened to the flies that day stayed in the minds of all the creatures in the house. They understood that sometimes, what seems like a small and harmless pleasure can turn into a big problem. The flies and other animals lived more wisely from then on. They were careful about where they went and what they did. They remembered the lesson from the flies and the honey jar. Pleasure that comes without thinking can lead to pain and trouble. Number 29. The Journey of Brian the Man and Leo the Lion. In a vast and wild forest, there was an unusual pair of friends, Brian, a strong and adventurous man, and Leo, a mighty and proud lion. They decided to travel together through the forest to see who was stronger and braver. As they walked, they talked about their strengths. Brian boasted, "Humans are the strongest creatures. We can outsmart and overpower any animal, even the king of the forest like you, Leo." Leo, with a roar of laughter, disagreed, "No, Brian, lions are the strongest. We are powerful and fearless." Their friendly argument continued as they journeyed through the thick trees and over the hills. Then, they came across a remarkable sight. It was a statue showing a man overpowering a lion. Brian pointed to the statue and said, "Look, Leo. See how strong we humans are? This statue proves that we are more powerful than lions." Leo looked at the statue and thought for a moment. Then he said calmly, "Brian, this statue was made by a man. Of course, it shows the man is stronger. If lions could make statues, you would see a very different scene, with the lion being the victor." Brian paused and considered Leo's words. He realized that the statue only represented one point of view. "You might be right, Leo," Brian admitted. "We all see things from our perspective." As they continued their journey, Brian and Leo discussed how each of them saw the world differently. Brian talked about human achievements and inventions, while Leo described the strength and skills of lions. The story of their journey and debate spread throughout the forest and the nearby villages. Animals and humans alike heard about the man and the lion who traveled together and discussed their strengths. The story taught them an important lesson: there are always different sides to every story, and everyone has their own perspective. It showed them that what one person or animal might see as true could be seen very differently by another. Brian and Leo's journey became a legend in the forest. It was a reminder that no one creature is the best at everything, and everyone has their unique strengths and abilities. From that day on, Brian and Leo continued to travel together, sharing stories and learning from each other. They became wiser, understanding the importance of seeing things from different perspectives. They realized that one story might be good, but another story might offer a new and different understanding. And so, the forest was filled with stories of Brian the Man and Leo the Lion, teaching all who lived there the value of friendship, respect, and understanding different points of view. Number 30. The Tale of Farmer Jack and the Clever Cranes. In a quiet countryside, there was a farmer named Jack who had vast fields of wheat. Every year, as the wheat began to grow, a flock of cranes would come and feed on the young plants. This troubled Farmer Jack, as the cranes would damage his crops. One day, as the cranes were busy pecking at the wheat, Farmer Jack came up with a plan. He took an old sling and started waving it in the air, running towards the cranes. The cranes, seeing the sling and Farmer Jack's angry face, flew away in fear. Farmer Jack was pleased that his plan had worked. For a few days, this trick worked well. Every time the cranes came, Farmer Jack would run out with his sling, and the cranes would fly away. But soon, the cranes became clever. They noticed that Farmer Jack never actually threw anything from the sling. It was always empty. So, the next time Farmer Jack came running with his sling, the cranes didn't fly away. They just looked at him and continued eating the wheat. Farmer Jack was surprised and didn't know what to do. He had never expected the cranes to stop being afraid of his sling. Seeing that his trick was no longer working, Farmer Jack decided he needed to do something more. This time, he put stones in his sling. He swung the sling and released the stones towards the cranes. Several cranes were hit and fell to the ground. The rest of the cranes got scared and realized that Farmer Jack was serious about protecting his wheat. They started calling to each other, "It's time to leave these fields. This man is not just scaring us anymore, he's actually hurting us." The cranes flew away and never returned to Farmer Jack's fields. They spread the word to other cranes about what had happened. They learned that Farmer Jack wasn't just making empty threats, he was ready to take action to protect his crops. Farmer Jack felt a little sad about hurting the cranes, but he knew he had to protect his livelihood. From that day on, the cranes stayed away from his fields, and his wheat grew tall and healthy. The story of Farmer Jack and the clever cranes became a lesson for both the animals and the farmers in the region. It taught them that sometimes, just words or empty threats are not enough. When words fail to protect what is important, action may be necessary. And so, the cranes learned to be more cautious about where they fed, and Farmer Jack learned the importance of finding a balance between scaring and harming. The fields were peaceful once again, and the harmony between the farmers and the birds was restored.